Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Madeline patiently explained to Jonathan the pathology, underlying causes, and potential future developments, as well as all the medical jargon in the examination report. Finally, she glanced at him and thought that being a layman, he probably couldn't understand it all. I see. So it's the medication I'm taking that's the problem, right? If it continues, it will inevitably develop into stomach cancer. To cure it, I have to stop taking the medication and take good care of myself for 3 or 4 months. Is that right? Jonathan summarized, making Madeline's job easier. He understood completely. You've been taking medication for a long time? What kind of medication is it? Madeline asked, seizing the key point. She couldn't help but be curious since he looked perfectly healthy. Jonathan hesitated for a moment, but Madeline raised her voice and adopted a serious expression. In front of your doctor, it's best not to conceal anything. You must understand that this concerns your life. However, Jonathan still didn't speak and had a distant look in his eyes. Madeline became even more anxious, but when she saw the sudden melancholy in his eyes, she had to suppress her impatience and wait patiently. I actually have a very severe case of depression. Jonathan suddenly smiled, but his smile was tinged with bitter self-mockery. Madeline was stunned. She had considered some other hidden disease but hadn't expected it to be depression. However, no matter how she looked at him, he didn't seem like a depressed person. Jonathan always gave her the impression of being a serious, reliable, and mature individual no matter when or where he was. How could he have depression? Madeline didn't really think it was absurd, but she just couldn't believe it. As a doctor, she understood the pain of depression better than anyone else. She was taken aback for several seconds, but Jonathan then turned around and smiled, saying, It's hard to believe, right? Even my family doesn't know about this condition. Of course, now that I've told you, I hope you can keep it a secret. In the world of a patient with depression, everything was gray, desperate, and devoid of interest. How could that sort of life be connected to someone like Jonathan? He had led the Queen family to new heights and had always been riding the waves in the business world alongside Lucian. He always gave others the impression of being a sincere and earnest man. Madeline nodded heavily, promising to keep his secret. Fortunately, Jonathan's next sentence gave her some comfort. Luckily, I don't know if it's the effect of the medication or my own mental adjustment, but many of my negative thoughts have disappeared recently. When I saw Lucian and his wife gradually getting together, I felt encouraged. Slowly, I'm feeling that my moods are becoming lighter. Jonathan looked at Madeline seriously and suddenly asked, do you believe me?
Of course. I absolutely believe you.
Madeline replied hurriedly. She quickly looked away, afraid of causing Jonathan any misunderstanding. At this moment, her feelings were complicated. The melancholy in his eyes made her feel like hugging him. Well, now that we've found the problem, it's probably the medication you're taking is too stimulating to your stomach. So, if it's not necessary, don't take the medication anymore. Is that okay? Madeline brought the topic back to the stomach problem, and then she realized that Jonathan was facing possibly 2 thorny issues, depression and stomach cancer. Yes, I understand now. I will stop taking the medication. What kind of treatment plan do we have going forward? Jonathan asked. I just sent the examination report to Roxanne. I can handle the modern medical treatment part, but she's better at traditional medicine as well as acupuncture. Anyway, don't worry about it. You'll be fine in no time. Madeline promised in a heavy tone. Madeline prescribed some medication and instructed Jonathan on how to take it, then finally advised him to relax and trust the treatment. She also suggested that he should have a follow-up examination in a month if he was not afraid of a gastroscopy. Jonathan was indeed a little traumatized, so Madeline smiled sheepishly and promised that she would find him another doctor next time. After he left, Madeline informed Roxanne of his condition.
His medication caused this? What kind of medication did he take that could cause such serious damage to his stomach?
Roxanne asked out of professional habit, but Madeline had promised to keep the secret and brushed it off.
It's a type of sleep aid, and I don't know where he got it from, but I told him to stop taking it now. Please prepare some stomach tonifying herbs for him.
Hearing that, Roxanne agreed. After a long day of work, when Roxanne returned to the villa, the three little ones gathered around her.
Mommy, you must be tired. Have some water.
Daddy said you always have to stand during experiments, so let me massage your legs.
Mommy, let me do it too. I'll massage your shoulders.
Roxanne had a hunch that they wanted something in return for their attentiveness.
What do you want? Some toys or a trip somewhere?
She glanced at Archie, Benny, and Estella in turn and noticed that their eyes were indeed sparkling with anticipation.
We don't want a trip or any toys. We want to go to the orphanage and donate some money we've saved up. Can we?
Estella's face was filled with hope. Roxanne was taken aback by their initiative but immediately agreed.
That's a great idea. Why would I say no? I'll take you there tomorrow.
At that, the three children were elated. When Lucian returned home, Roxanne told him about the children's request at dinner.
Lucian smiled and praised the children.
Coincidentally, it was the weekend the next day, so the family decided to go tomorrow. Later during dinner, Lucian was surprised to hear from Roxanne about Jonathan's severe stomach problems, but was reassured when he learned that Madeline and Roxanne were taking care of him themselves.
Why don't we invite him tomorrow too?
He's a workaholic who only knows how to work.
It'll be good for him to participate in some other activities.
Sure.
In that case, let's invite Madeline too. She has the day off tomorrow anyway. It'll give her a chance to interact with Jonathan more.
Roxanne was halfway through her dinner, but immediately called Madeline about it. Madeline was originally thinking of complaining after hearing the request, as she had plenty of work as a hospital director and was actually working from home on her day off. However, when she heard that Jonathan was also going, her heart stirred with interest, and she immediately agreed.
Ahaha, as soon as you hear that Jonathan is coming, you agree. You're terrible at hiding your feelings. Roxanne teased.
However, Madeline had different thoughts in her mind. Going to the orphanage and helping those children might give Jonathan some healing power against his depression.
She didn't explain this, though. Yes, I'm all in for Jonathan now. You can make fun of me all you want. It's not like you're any different.
You had been waiting for Lucian for so many years. After chatting for a few more minutes, they hung up. Then, out of the blue, Lucian asked about the
wedding photo shoot. It's up to you.
Whenever you want to do it, we'll do it. I've waited for so many years, so a few more won't matter. Roxanne's words made Lucian feel slightly nervous again, as they still carried a hint of resentment. Over the weekend, Roxanne and Lucian took the three children to the orphanage. The children didn't reveal how much money they had raised for donation, and although Roxanne and Lucian were curious, they waited for the children to disclose it themselves. They first went to the supermarket and bought a lot of toys, snacks, and books. Then, they arranged for a medium-sized truck to deliver them directly from the supermarket to the orphanage. Madeline and Jonathan were already waiting for them when they arrived at the orphanage. Madeline wore a beautiful dress, while Jonathan dressed casually for once. The two of them had immediately made plans for the orphanage. Madeline had already arranged for a medical team to come and give the children at the orphanage medical checkups. Meanwhile, Jonathan had contacted several sponsors overnight and secured free furniture and daily necessities for the children. The two of them had already talked to the orphanage director and were just waiting for Lucian's family to arrive. Upon arrival, the group was warmly welcomed, and with the help of the orphanage director, the three children quickly mingled with the other kids and started talking with them. It was clear that the staff at this orphanage had provided the children with good psychological care, as all of them were vibrant and full of energy. The entire process went very smoothly. The 3 children donated over $130,000, which surprised both Roxanne and Lucian since they never gave the kids pocket money before, as they didn't lack anything. Roxanne was a bit worried and looked at Archie and Benny, asking, "How did you save up so much money?" She was afraid that Archie and Benny had used their powerful hacking skills to make money illegally, but Estella piped up with an explanation. It's not them. I was the one who earned most of the money by learning from Archie and Benny how to fix website vulnerabilities for clients. The clients paid me for my help and gave me a lot of money." Archie and Benny nodded. Of course, they also contributed by creating online courses and earning money through their website in a legal manner. Essie earned much more than us this time, but Benny and I will donate more in the future. The orphanage director smiled at the 3 of them and thanked them for their generosity. Thank you. I'll make sure to tell the other children about what you've done so that they can also learn to help others in the future when they have the ability to." Meanwhile, Madeline and Jonathan were busy with their tasks. Madeline was conducting health checkups on dozens of children with her team, which took some time to complete, while Jonathan was working with sponsors to improve the living conditions for the children, including replacing old beds and equipment with new ones. In the afternoon, the orphanage director and staff prepared a meal to thank Roxanne and her family for their visit. Before leaving, Roxanne, Lucian, and their children bid farewell to everyone, promising to come back and visit again. "She will come back again, everyone." The director personally escorted them to the front door, expressing his sincere gratitude once again. This made Lucian feel a bit embarrassed, so he promised again that they would make further donations in the future. Jonathan and Madeline were still busy with their respective tasks, so Roxanne and Lucian didn't disturb them and let them continue their work. After Lucian and his family left, Madeline finally finished compiling the health check results and handed them over to the orphanage director. Some children needed further medical attention, which would require specialized equipment at a hospital. Jonathan also completed his task of improving the living conditions of the children. He felt a sense of relief and accomplishment as he looked at the result of his efforts. Returning to the villa in the evening, Roxanne once again emphasized to Archie and Benny the importance of being discerning and cautious when helping others online to avoid being taken advantage of by unscrupulous individuals, such as being hired to hack websites or actively soliciting money while offering assistance. Essie may not understand, but you too must. You have to help her watch out. Don't let your kindness turn into doing bad things, Roxanne emphasized. The 2 nodded and promised to be vigilant. Estella remained immersed in her joy, a simple emotion that came from helping others and feeling truly happy. One girl even gave her a beautiful hair clip, which she cherished. Soon, Elias and Sonia arrived in a car. Elias came to teach Archie and Benny how to play chess, which was not their first time. In just a while, the 2 children and Elias were immersed in the game, finding it challenging as they battled against each other. Meanwhile, Sonia came over to cook and make soup for the children. Lucian didn't say anything and went upstairs to work on his tasks in the study. Roxanne had been working to help Jonathan prepare his medication, but after finishing, she went downstairs to check on the situation. Suddenly, she heard a cry from the kitchen and rushed over. There, she saw Sonia with a painful expression on her face. Sonia's right palm was red and blistered as she soaked it in a basin of water. She rarely cooked and wasn't used to handling hot items. After finishing cooking the soup, she spilled some on her hand without noticing it had bubbled over. It was so painful that tears almost flowed from her eyes, but she held back and made no sound. Mrs. Farwell, you got burned? No, you can't just soak it in water like that. Hurry up. Roxanne immediately grabbed Sonia's hand, removed it from the basin, turned on the tap, and held it under running water. The first step for a burn is to run cold water on it for 15 minutes. Just soaking it in water is not enough. Blisters may form soon. Roxanne spoke with a professional medical tone, while Sonia felt awkward at being held like that. Looking at Roxanne, Sonia said apologetically. I'm really terrible at even this simple task.
I'm sorry, Roxanne.
It's okay, Mrs. Farwell. Cooking soup is something that can be left to the cook. You don't have to do it yourself. Roxanne knew that she was making up for what she owed Archie and Benny over the past 6 years.
I just wanted Archie and Benny to taste my soup. I didn't expect myself to be so clumsy.
Sonia's initial awkwardness disappeared as she talked to Roxanne while her hand was being held. Staring at Roxanne, she began to feel different and strange feelings in her heart.
Okay, I understand. Keep rinsing your hand, and I'll go upstairs to get some ointment. We'll have to apply it later.
Fortunately, the burn isn't too severe, Roxanne instructed, rushing upstairs. Elias heard their conversation and went over to check on his wife.
Why are you so careless?
He scolded her, but his brows furrowed with worry, and his eyes were filled with anxiety. The children also heard the commotion and asked about Sonia's condition, expressing their concern.
Grandma, are you okay?
We won't drink soup next time, so you won't get burned, one of the children said.
Grandma, does it hurt a lot? You can ask us for help or ask Daddy and Mommy to help you.
Mommy said we have to be careful in the kitchen to avoid burns, another child said. While Sonia listened to the children's concerned words, her furrowed brows slowly relaxed. She shook her head and reassured them, I'm fine, don't worry. Your mommy will help me apply some medicine later, and I'll be okay soon. At that moment, she felt a sense of peace and warmth in her heart. She looked at her husband with a faint smile on her lips. Following Roxanne's instructions, Sonia rinsed her hand under cold water for 15 minutes and felt the burning pain disappear instantly. Roxanne then applied her homemade burn ointment, which felt like a moisturizer, carefully on Sonia's hand and adjusted the cold air from the hairdryer to slowly dry the ointment. Sonia felt a refreshing coolness on the back of her hand, which was quite comfortable. Gradually, the redness caused by the burn started to dissipate, and Sonia realized the extent of Roxanne's medical expertise. With such a burn ointment, it could likely become a hot-selling product in the market. I'll serve the soup to the kids, Mrs. Farwell. You just sit tight, Roxanne said as she went into the kitchen. She tasted the soup and found it delicious before scooping it into bowls and serving them one by one. Archie took the initiative to bring Sonia a bowl of soup and said, Grandma, this is the soup you worked hard to make. You should be the first to taste it. Sonia wanted to decline, but Elias smiled and said, It's rare that you cook soup. In fact, this is probably the first time in your life. You should taste your own craft. Roxanne immediately handed Elias a bowl of soup. The children were next, and even Lucian was called over to drink soup with the family. By 9 o'clock that night, the children had to prepare for their baths and bedtime, and Sonia was reluctant to say goodbye to the 3 little ones. On the way home, Elias praised his wife without hesitation and encouraged her to continue on. He believed that Roxanne would forgive her someday.
I know, but that's because Roxanne is kind enough.
I shouldn't be thinking about seeking forgiveness all the time. I should be thinking about how to be a good grandmother and mother-in-law. Maybe I realized it too late, or maybe the realization came too suddenly.
Sonia sighed.
She realized that when she was a daughter-in-law in the Farwell family, her husband had protected her, and she had not suffered much. Elias didn't say much after that, but he believed that his wife would change for the better. Amidst the deafening beats of the DJ and the gyrating crowd, Electra felt uneasy in the noisy bar. She had always been associated with serenity and kindness from her early years to now. However, she found herself in this raucous scene, sipping on red wine, glass after glass, that had a tangy and slightly bitter taste. Although the bar's wine was subpar, it was strong enough to cloud her senses. If she persevered till the last drop, she could escape from her worries. When it came to facing Roxanne, Electra was aware that she stood no chance. Her heart was young and full of passion, but everything seemed futile. Suddenly, a dapper and somewhat attractive man who was wearing trendy clothes noticed her and went over. It was a common sight to see men prowling around solitary women in the bar. As he took a seat across from her, Electra grew agitated and coldly snapped, Excuse me, I didn't invite you to sit here. Could you please leave me alone?" Had it been anyone else, they would have taken note of Electra's extravagant attire and the keys to her sports car resting on the table, and they would have probably stayed away. After all, these gave the impression that she was a well-to-do young woman from a wealthy and prestigious family. However, this particular man simply gave her a faint smile and was unfazed by Electra's irritable demeanor. Excuse me, you're Ms. Lane, right? My employer wishes to have a conversation with you regarding an important matter. Would you be willing to meet with my employer?" Get lost. I don't care who you are. I'm not in the mood right now." Electra ignored the young man and dismissed him altogether. She was in a bad mood and didn't want to meet anyone. I think you would want to meet her. After all, she knows about your troubles and wants to help you. You must hate Roxanne Jarvis a lot, right? The young man teased. His employer had said that if he mentioned Roxanne, Electra would agree to meet. Sure enough, Electra lifted her gaze and asked, What's your employer's name?" Following the young man, Electra got in the car, and it sped off to a cruise terminal where yachts and cruise ships from around the world were docked. It was a playground for the rich. She followed him onto a luxurious cruise ship from Horan. The salty sea breeze blowing from the port jolted Electra into alertness, swiftly clearing the fogginess of her mind. "Is your employer from Horan?" she asked. "Yes, Ms. Lane, don't worry. The whole cruise ship has been reserved, and there is no one else on board," the young man reassured her. With the presence of stern bodyguards flanking her on both sides since boarding the ship, Electra felt that she had no reason to feel apprehensive anymore. It was apparent that the individual who had extended the invitation was affluent and influential. Shortly after, she was escorted to a reception area, where a waiter respectfully poured her a glass of red wine. The waiter meticulously opened the bottle, swirled it, and carefully poured the wine into a tall glass while politely saying, "Ya miss, please enjoy," in Austronesian. Electra lifted the tall glass and took a sip. She could tell the red wine was of high quality. While scanning the room, Electra's attention was drawn to a poised and elegant figure making her way toward the reception area. As Electra gazed upon the striking face that looked perfect from all angles, she immediately recognized that the face had undergone surgical enhancement, which was not uncommon in Horan. Although such a face was impeccable, it had one critical flaw. The hospital employed identical proportions, resulting in many individuals having nearly identical faces. Fortunately, this woman possessed her own distinctive oval-shaped face, setting her apart from the sea of other women with rounded faces. Electra gazed at the young woman before her with a mixture of curiosity and intrigue. The woman appeared to be young and around the same age as her, but she couldn't recall having any friends from Horan. As the woman reached for a tall glass and flashed a mature and alluring smile, even Electra couldn't help but acknowledge that she exuded an almost flawless perfection and a sultry aura that could entice any man to take a second look at her. Hello, and who might you be?" Electra was still trying to figure out if the woman was from Horan. The woman raised her glass and clinked it gently with Electra's with a playful glint in her eyes. My name is Christina Patel." "Hello, Ms. Lane," Christina said lightly, downing the wine in one gulp without even savoring it. Electra was taken aback for a moment as she didn't recognize this name. Hello, Miss Patel. Do we know each other?" This last name was undoubtedly Horanese. However, this fluent Chilean accent was not common for a Horanese to possess. A complex look flooded Christina's eyes as she looked at Electra and nodded firmly. "Electra, we do know each other." Since the other woman even knew her own name, Electra's puzzlement and wariness increased. Who are you? Why did you go through so much trouble to track me down? Do you have any association with Roxanne?" Electra's mind raced as she attempted to grasp the situation. Don't be nervous. I didn't come here with any malicious intent. In fact, I came here today because I wish to collaborate with you. If you think carefully, I'm sure you'll recognize who I am." Christina reassured her, setting down her wine glass. The waiter promptly approached and refilled it. She picked up the glass again, her eyes full of interest as she looked at Electra. Suddenly, a thought struck Electra. "Are you Aubrey Pearson?" she exclaimed in puzzlement. Christina simply nodded in response. After 3 months, she had returned. From the moment she entered Horan, there was only one thing that kept her going, which was revenge against Roxanne. Her family, her emotions, her body, everything was lost because of Roxanne. In Horan, she used her body to earn money for plastic surgery, a place to live, luxury cosmetics, and her current lifestyle. Fortunately, she eventually met the son of a powerful tycoon who gave her the financial capital for revenge. Although she knew she was just a plaything and eye candy to him, it didn't matter as long as she was favored now. This cruise trip alone cost several millions. Mr. Goldstein liked relationship dynamics as such, and for the past few days, she had done everything to serve him well. As Electra gazed at Christina before her, her shocked expression gradually eased. The Aubrey in front of her was quite unlike the Aubrey she had previously known. Had Christina not confessed, Electra would have even suspected deception. Electra, do you believe me? I want to collaborate with you to deal with Roxanne." The loathing in Aubrey's eyes was palpable and impossible to conceal. I understand. But tell me, what approach do you have in mind for our collaboration? And why me specifically? While I do have an interest in Lucian, I don't have a personal vendetta against Roxanne, just a mild dislike. I don't think my hatred for her is on par with yours. Electra didn't want to fall into Aubrey's trap so easily as she had yet to decide. Being aware of the Pearson family and Aubrey's fate added to her wariness. I understand your reservations and that you don't have any deep hatred against Roxanne, but our goal is aligned. You can get close to Lucian while I can take my revenge against Roxanne. Aubrey knew that it wasn't easy to win over Electra, but a certain tinge of confidence was plastered on her face. With Mr. Goldstein's support, she now had more abilities at her disposal. So, what's the plan? Electra's interest was piqued. Indeed, all she wanted was to be with Lucian, and that was enough. The plan is actually quite simple. Roxanne isn't too suspicious of you right now, so if you try to get close to her and become her friend, that should be enough. Of course, you'll need to give me some information as well. We'll work together and bring Roxanne down. Christina's words were a bit vague. Electra furrowed her brows and asked, "Are you suggesting that we directly harm Roxanne? Have you heard of the story of the Damaris family? Roxanne isn't someone who can be easily taken down. Directly harming Roxanne would be foolish." Jack Damaris? Haha. He was a pitiful man. If he had worked with me in the beginning, things would be so much better now. Christina had spent a lot of money gathering information on Roxanne during her time in Horrington. She had learned that Roxanne had gotten together with Lucian and had 3 children with him. They were a happy family, and even Sonia had repented. Christina was consumed by hatred and pain, as if a dam had burst inside her, causing her to constantly grind her teeth and toss and turn in bed. The intensity of her emotions was so overwhelming that it left her with a constant ache in her chest. While she thought of all that, her eyes glimmered with anger and resentment. Of course, we won't cause direct harm. I know you wouldn't do that either. You don't want to get yourself in trouble, and I understand that. I can assure you that won't happen. If you don't believe me, wait and see for the next 2 days. I'll show you the plan and the way forward. Early in the morning, Sonia arrived at the mansion. She busied herself with helping the children wash up, chatting with them, and finally, having breakfast with them. She wouldn't let the servants help and insisted on doing everything herself. Her burn from the previous night had completely healed when she woke up this morning, which made her admire her daughter-in-law's medical skills. Lucian didn't object to his mother's actions and even let her take the children to school. When Roxanne woke up, she felt menstrual cramps and stayed in bed for a while. When Sonia returned after taking the children to school, she found that Roxanne had just gotten up, and Roxanne's face didn't look good. Sonia immediately realized what was going on. Roxanne, since you're in pain like this, why don't you take the day off and rest? I'll make you a nourishing soup downstairs, Sonia said, and before Roxanne could react, she went downstairs to the kitchen. Shortly after, Lucian also called and asked if Roxanne was in a lot of pain. He suggested she take some painkillers to relieve it. I'm a doctor myself, so I know what to do about it. You can focus on work, and I'll take the day off. It's just that Mrs. Farwell made soup last night, and now she wants to make soup for me again. I'm afraid she'll get burned again, Lucian said with a faint smile. Roxanne, just give her an opportunity to do it. This is her karma. You don't speak ill of your own mother like that. Anyway, I know what to do, and I'll take care of myself. Once my period is over, let's take our wedding photos, Roxanne replied. She still couldn't bring herself to call Sonia your mom, but Lucian didn't say anything about it. After showering and getting ready, Roxanne felt the pain had eased a bit, so she slowly went downstairs. Sonia came out of the kitchen, smiling. It's almost done. This soup is something I've been drinking since I was young, and it's very effective for cramps. It'll nourish your body. Roxanne nodded and sat down while asking about the burn from the previous night. Sonia showed her hand and praised Roxanne's medical skills. She mentioned that many ladies were also interested in the burn medicine. Why isn't this medicine on the market? It will be a bestseller if it's produced commercially, Sonia asked curiously. Roxanne patiently explained, the medicinal ingredients for this medicine are very rare, and the production process cannot be commercialized, so it's not suitable for mass production. I only made a small batch to treat the children if they got burned. But from now on, I will stock up more for the family. I see. It's true that good medicine is hard to make. Stay seated for a while, and the soup will be ready soon. Don't worry. It's not very greasy, and it's very suitable to have as breakfast, Sonia said and returned to the kitchen. After a while, she brought the soup out, served a small bowl, and let it cool down. After finishing, Roxanne and Sonia sat alone together, feeling awkward. Sonia asked, do you need anything else? I can go and buy it for you. Roxanne shook her head and said, no, thank you, Mrs. Farwell. This soup is really delicious. Roxanne began to drink the soup, which had a unique and fragrant aroma. She also praised Sonia's cooking skills. Sonia was rather embarrassed and eventually said she would help Lucian tidy up his study. When Roxanne saw her go upstairs, she finally relaxed a little. After all, Sonia was an elder who used to give off an intimidating aura. But now, she was polite and gentle, which made Roxanne feel a different kind of discomfort. Roxanne had 2 bowls of soup but found it difficult to finish the second. Despite that, she eventually managed to drink it all. When Sonia came down after tidying up the study, she was delighted to see that Roxanne had finished all the soup. Mrs. Farwell, your soup is really well made and delicious. Roxanne praised the soup once again, causing Sonia to feel a little shy. Suddenly, Roxanne's lower abdomen started to ache again, so she decided to go upstairs and lie down. If you like it, I can make some more later. You can have it for lunch or dinner, Sonia offered. Hearing that Sonia wanted to make more, Roxanne didn't want to refuse Sonia's kind offer, so she quickly changed the subject. Mrs. Farwell, this soup is so good. Why don't you send some over to Lucian? He's been working hard lately and hasn't had a chance to get proper nutrition. Sonia thought it was a good idea and decided to make some more soup while Roxanne rested in her room. Over an hour later, Roxanne was dozing off when Sonia suddenly knocked on her door. Hey Roxanne, she whispered softly, not wanting to disturb her. Mrs. Farwell, what's the matter? Roxanne asked. Well, my car suddenly broke down, and I don't know what's wrong with it. I've called the body shop to come and take a look. But the soup is ready, and I thought I could bring it over to Lucian while it's still hot. Lucian's cars in the garage are either too uncomfortable or too big for me to drive. So, I was wondering if I could borrow your car for a bit. Roxanne thought it was a small matter and that the car keys were already hanging in the hallway, so there was no need for Sonia to ask her for them. However, she still politely replied, Sure, no problem. The keys are hanging in the hallway. Mrs. Farwell, please drive safely. Sonia nodded and left the room. Arriving downstairs, she picked up the keys and turned to leave. The butler suggested that a driver could drive Sonia there, but she refused. I want to do it myself. It's meaningful only if I personally deliver it. If you do everything for me, what use am I as a mother? The butler couldn't argue with her and just reminded her to drive slowly. Half an hour later. Attention, breaking news for all drivers on the road. We have received reports of a major traffic jam on the second ring road caused by a serious car accident. A vehicle collided with the guardrail, blocking 2 lanes and bringing traffic to a standstill. The police and hospital emergency teams were dispatched to the location. As a result of the impact, all airbags were released, and a female driver is currently unconscious. However, brave and kind-hearted Good Samaritans are lending their assistance at the scene. When Lucian received the call from the hospital informing him that his mother had been in a car accident, he froze for 2 seconds before urgently asking, Is she okay? I'm Lucian Farwell from Farwell Group. Please treat my mother as soon as possible. I'm on my way. He suppressed his impatience and anxiously waited for a response from the other end of the phone. She's okay. She's just unconscious due to head trauma. All vital signs are normal, and there are no other injuries or fractures. Please rest assured, Mr. Farwell. We will do our best to save her. When the doctor on the other end of the line heard Lucian's name, he suddenly became more serious and made a promise to do his best. Lucian finally felt slightly relieved when he heard the news that his mother was okay. He immediately had Caden prepare the car to go to the hospital. Taking the private elevator down, Lucian quickly informed his father of the situation. When Elias heard that his wife was involved in a car accident, he panicked. Lucian hurriedly told him what the doctor said. Lucian, I'm on my way to the hospital. You're nearer to the hospital, so please hurry over as well. How could this happen? Just before your mother left, she was still showing off to me about making soup for you. How could this happen? When Lucian arrived at the hospital, Sonia was still in the emergency room. His arrival even startled the hospital director, who rushed over to check on Sonia and reassured them that she would be fine. Mr. Farwell, your mother has regained consciousness, and all her vital signs are normal. She only suffered a mild concussion from the impact to her head, but as long as she stays in the hospital for observation, she should be fine. Lucian nodded and thanked the doctor before immediately going in to check on Sonia. Sonia's expression was still a bit dazed, but when she saw her son, she immediately smiled. Lucian, I got into a car accident, but thankfully I'm okay. Don't worry, I'm fine. Seeing the concern in her son's eyes, Sonia felt unexpectedly happy, as it had been a long time since she had felt her son's care. Lucian approached her and asked if there were any parts of her body that were hurting. Sonia shook her head. I'm really fine. My head just got hit by the airbag. Fortunately, I wasn't driving too fast, but it's a shame about the spilled soup. You're involved in an accident, and yet, you're still worrying about soup? Why are you so careless? Elias pushed open the door and walked briskly to his wife, grabbing her hand and checking her anxiously. He was worried that something might have been missed during the examination. Seeing her husband's nervous appearance, Sonia felt even happier and said with a smile, I'm really fine. I wasn't paying attention, so I got into an accident. Oh, and I'm sorry about Roxanne's car. Lucian immediately said, Mom, the car isn't important. We can just buy another one. But what about you? Did you not rest well, and is that why you lost concentration? No, I don't think so. But I felt like the brakes were acting up. Fortunately, I was the one driving. If it had been Roxanne and if she was driving fast, it could have been worse. Sonia's offhand remark caused both Elias and Lucian to freeze and their expressions to turn serious. Mom, are you saying that the brakes failed? That was Roxanne's car. Lucian's heart skipped a beat, and he felt that this accident was not as simple as it seemed.
Elias Gase confirmiert Lucians Suspicions.
Lucian, go to the traffic department and find out what happened. I'll stay here with your mother. Elias nodded slightly, gesturing for his son to leave. Okay, then stay with Mom. Let me know if anything happens. I'll go to the traffic department. Lucian turned and left in a hurry. This made Sonia roll her eyes at her husband. Our son finally showed concern for me, and you made him leave in such a hurry. Why are you in such a rush? You're too carefree. A sudden brake failure isn't normal at all. Plus, Roxanne was still using that car yesterday. How could it just coincidentally fail today? Elias revealed the seriousness of the situation. Sonia thought about it, and her eyes widened in shock. Are you saying that someone wants to harm Roxanne? Coincidentally, I borrowed her car, and because I usually drive so slowly, the accident wasn't serious. Elias frowned and looked at her. It was Sonia who had initially reminded them of this possibility. Didn't you mention it yourself earlier? Did you not think of this? I was just joking at first. How could I have thought of such a sinister plot? Who could it be? And how did they have the opportunity to tamper with the car? Sonia's questions were what confused Elias as well.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.